Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and specifically I want to talk about Facet. I want to talk about the 100-page first printing of Dungeons and Dragons that contains Hobbit and Balrog material that will be printed in the making of Dungeons and Dragons, making of original Dungeons and Dragons 1970 to 1977. I want to talk about I want to talk about what this is and what's actually being accomplished with the printing of original Dungeons and Dragons first printing with the D&D token, with official Dungeons and Dragons and official first time ever official token of state Hobbit and Balrog material, right? Huge. This reprint is huge. So what I want to talk with you about today is I don't think anyone at Hasbro really understands what they're doing, because this D&D canon hardback, right, is making a fully playable Dungeons and Dragons experience. Okay, so let me explain this, right? So editions are done. We're in 1 D&D now, right? So how do we talk about editions? And I want to thank you for your patience, because I'm finding the language to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We need to respect what Hasbro is doing. They are ending editions so that we will never again have an edition war. Right here in my comments, I have grognards coming in and desperately trying to continue the edition war. So every time you hear somebody say, Dungeons & Dragons 5.5, Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition is coming out soon, the reason they're doing that is they don't have any identity without the edition wars, right? And so they want the edition wars to continue, but we're past the edition wars. So let me explain this. If you bought 1983 Dungeons and Dragons, PHB, DMG, MM, right? You had a fully playable Dungeons and Dragons experience. You had a Dungeon Master, you had Dragon Masters. You had the Dungeon Master running the game, running the world. You have Dragon Masters, each one running a player character. Other people call them Dungeons and Dragons players. I call them Dragon Masters. You had the Dungeon Master, you had the Dragon Masters at the table. Fully playable. And 1983 Dungeons and Dragons, PHB, DMG, PHB, DMG, PHB, MM, right? 1983, fully playable experience. 1993, where Lorraine Williams, Dungeons and Dragons, right? PHB, DMG, MM. 2003, right? Here you have, I think it was Jonathan Tweed at that point, and you have, 2003 DMG, PHB, MM. And then you move to 2008, right? This is Robert Hansu's Dungeons and Dragons, PHB, DMG, MM, right? Then you reach 2015, right? And now we're actually 2014, right? And that's really Mike Merle's Dungeons and Dragons, right? And then in 2024, that's Christopher Perkins' Dungeons and Dragons. And 2024 is the end of all editions. It's the Infinite Edition, right? And what's interesting is in 2024, Facet, right, that 100-page printed original Dungeons and Dragons is a fully playable Dungeons and Dragons experience, but it's disguised. It's a secret, fully playable Dungeons and Dragons experience. Now, this has happened one time, and so basically, right, they're like, oh, look at this historical document. It's not a historical document. It's a fully playable Dungeons and Dragons experience being delivered in 1974 and delivering something that has never been legally playable. Never, right? Until now, right? And so this is actually better because even if you owned a first edition printing of this is better because you don't have to blow dust off of it. You could throw it down on the table. You can spill coffee on it. You can play it. Right? But it's secret. It's not coming in a traditional D&D canon hardback. It's coming in a thicker historical D&D canon hardback, right? Almost a D&D memorial book, right? But it has a fully playable Dungeons & Dragons experience, as real as 1983 D&D, as real as 1993 D&D, as real as 2003 D&D, as real as 2008 D&D, as real as 2014 D&D, and as real as 2024 Infinite D&D. And actually, this will be 2024 original D&D. Now, what's interesting is it's secret. It's being delivered sideways. Now, I'd like to tell you this is unprecedented, but it's not. It's been done one time before. One time before, Dungeons & Dragons delivered a fully playable Dungeons & Dragons experience and didn't admit that they had done it. All right? And it was the Young Adventurer's Guide. A lot of people don't know this. I know it because I bought it and I read it cover to cover. The Young Adventurer's Guide, in my humble opinion, is a 100% fully playable Dungeons & Dragons experience. It is the 2019 D&D experience. It is a fully playable product, right? And so that's the thing that I don't think people understand is I think they think that this is going to function as a coffee table book, but it's not. This is the best version of OSR Dungeons & Dragons that can be purchased anywhere. It is, you cannot get more original gangster. You cannot get more OSR than what Hasbro is printing in 2024. And it will be better than the original because it's actually usable. I know this, right? I own Marvel Saga tabletop role-playing game. It's unusable. And the reason why because, I take it off the shelf every 2 or 3 years and I rub it on my face because I could not actually put it down and play it with friends. And the reason why is if I lose, even a single card, I lose $1,000 or $2,000 and I don't even look it up anymore because I love that. I love owning it, right? It's valuable to me, right? So the reality is this is where we land. This is where we land. We actually land at a point where what's really happening with making of original Dungeons & Dragons 1970 to 1977 is this is a product that is so amazing. I don't think anyone has really discussed what's actually being accomplished, right? And so what I'm saying is, in my humble opinion, what we are really getting with Dungeons & Dragons, with the making of original Dungeons & Dragons 1970 to 1977, is the second secret delivery of a secret, fully playable Dungeons & Dragons product. As real as 1983 Dungeons & Dragons, as real as 1993 Dungeons & Dragons, as real as 2003 Dungeons & Dragons, as real as 2008 Dungeons & Dragons, as real as 2014 Dungeons & Dragons, and its only real counterpart, its only real analog, not a counterpart, analog, is the Young Adventurer's Guide, which looks like Dungeons & Dragons presented in book form. It looks like a memorial of Dungeons & Dragons aimed at junior high kids, but it is really 100%, in my humble opinion, a fully playable Dungeons & Dragons experience, right? And it's a secret delivery, and it's really wild, right? Like D&D exists in these incredible, facets, right? But there are two facets that people don't even realize are facets. They don't realize that they are fully playable Dungeons & Dragons experiences. And this is why I love Dungeons & Dragons so much, is you can be a fan, you can be a presentorian of Dungeons & Dragons, and you will get surprised every day. And things are happening on Dungeons & Dragons so fast, so dramatically, and so dynamically that like 3 people in the world actually understand what's actually happening. And I appreciate you being here to learn what's actually happening on Dungeons & Dragons. I love doing this channel. I am incredibly blessed to share my ideas about Dungeons & Dragons with you every day. And I'm incredibly blessed that there's never a video that isn't watched and there's never a video that isn't commented on. And I'm so thankful to each and every one of you. Thank you very much for letting me share with you my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.